I don't usually make videos out of a certain topic, but I really felt called to doing this because I know I'm not the only one who struggles to make decisions, especially big decisions. Yet being able to do so, it's so important. We literally make decisions on a daily basis, and whether we're aware of it or not, the decisions that we make today determine the story that we tell tomorrow. Now, before I really get into the tips that I want to share, I want to clarify that I'm not here to tell you the ABCs as to how to make a decision, because I honestly believe there is not an exact way of doing it. There are so many scenarios to consider, and the severity of decision varies so much that saying that there is an exact process to follow is not accurate. So what I really want to define here are 4 tips that now I follow each time that I'm making a decision, no matter how big or small it is. So to begin, I want to give you a timeline of what have been the biggest decisions that I've made so far. When I was just 15 in 2017, I emigrated Venezuela and I moved to the United States. 2 years later, in 2019, I moved here to Toronto, Canada. A couple months after that, I decided to take a 5th year of high school, and I just went through the process of deciding where to go to university and what to study. So the scenario of my first big jump made the decision pretty much obvious. I mean, I literally longed for an opportunity to continue my career in North America, and the situation in Venezuela just continued to add to my desire of living. Once the opportunity came, staying was not an option. Now we move forward 2 years, and in May of 2019, I moved here to Toronto. Making that decision was hard. To picture the scenario, I had just adjusted to live in a foreign country. I loved the community that I lived at, and I was in a very safe place. In general, I was just enjoying my high school experience. However, since I first stepped in Sunrise, I knew that now I was after something bigger. I had just accomplished one of my dreams, but that was only a step I needed to take to keep on moving forward. I wanted to get recruited to play college basketball, and in that aspect, I felt some pieces were out of place. I didn't just want to play college basketball, I wanted to play at the highest of levels, and I knew for that to happen, I needed greater exposure to Division 1 coaches. So in my time at Sunrise, I had heard that basketball in Ontario was actually very good, and considering my parents were in Toronto, I began to explore the opportunities that I could have here. Eventually, a door opened, and then it was totally up to me to decide whether to take it or not. At that point, I was split in two. On one side, I felt very good and did not want to leave the friends that I had just made. I wanted to finish what I had just started. But on the other side, I believed this opportunity would put me closer to my end goal. And well, I decided to move here. How? It definitely took a lot of thinking, but it all came down to 2 things that eventually clicked in my mind. Direction, not intention, determines destination. I knew where I wanted to go, and I had the intention. I needed to take action. And just as I had seen the first time I moved, to step forward in our destiny, we often have to step out of our security. These 2 things, however, were my last push. Before getting to them, I followed the 4 tips that now I'm going to share with you. So here we go. Tip number 1. When making a decision, before anything, we must understand that the more choices that we have on the table, the harder it is to decide. So the first thing we need to do is to narrow our choices down and keep on the table only the things that would be in some way right to consider. That is when question 1 or this tip comes to play. Ask yourself, does this option align with my values? If the answer is no, it's not even an option. Period. And if you're not clear about what your values are, then that's the place to start even before trying to make the decision. Think about the things that you stand for. Write them out. That helps to have a clearer image. Does this glorify God? Is this a clean process? And by clean, I mean like an honest process. Does it harm anyone? Those are the main things that I stand for. So those are the questions that I ask myself. That puts on the table only the things that should be considered. And then we jump into tip number 2, which is again a question. Does this option align with my goals? Am I getting closer to them? And if so, how? This right here is probably the biggest reason why I decided to move here. At the moment, both staying in the US and coming here aligned with my goals. But as I said, I believe that coming here would put me closer to them. And that has a lot of weight. So with a better sense of what is gonna get us to where we want to be, we jump into tip number 3. Get pen and paper, and I need to make emphasis on this because we often underestimate the power of paper. Get pen and paper and write the pros and cons of each of your options. More often than not, that gets me to see things that I didn't see before or that I didn't think about before. So consider things like the scenario, what does it cost? And the final question I ask myself when I compare one option with the other is, what do I get if I choose option 1 over option 2 and vice versa? And last, but by no means the least, is pray about it. Pray, and pray. Do not underestimate the power of that. Prayer alone can really give us so much clarity. And it's not only about kneeling down and saying, God, please show me what's the right thing to do. No, we have to be able to listen, because he speaks, we're often just not able to hear. It's like often we decide to put the headphones of society and block his voice. But if there's someone that really cares for us and wants us to make the best decision, it's God. He loves us more than anyone here. And yes, that includes our parents. And he's the only one who knows the outcome of your choice. Especially after going through all this process of careful thinking, we just have to trust him. Let it be through his word, through other people, or through our inner feeling. Be open to listen. And if you are, when he speaks, you will know. So reading these 4 tips after a year or so is what really helped me to decide where to go to university and what to study. And of course, these are by no means magical solutions. Making big decisions will always be hard. But at least for me, following these 4 steps makes the process way smoother. I feel more in peace, less stress, and more confident. They make the whole experience more enjoyable. Now, I really couldn't end this video before addressing this question, because it was something that I would ask myself all the time. How do I know if we make the right decision? And the answer is, we truly don't. We will never know what would have happened if we would have chosen the alternative. Even if we think we had a clearer image of what could have happened, we never know, because we're never in full control. I mean, as far as I know, nobody expected a pandemic last year. So you tell me. My personal conclusion in this is that every decision that we make after careful thought is the right decision to make. Every one of them. God has something for us in the path that we decide to take, a purpose behind the outcome. And even if it's a storm, we still get to choose how to respond. It is truly a never-ending process. So remember the tips and look for the opportunities in the outcome. Whether good or bad, we have to attain to the consequences. And lastly, if you're going through a storm right now after a big decision, remember this little story told in Mark 4. The disciples were in a boat in the sea and a huge storm came. Of course, they all started to freak out and fear for their life while Jesus was with them, but he was just casually napping. So they woke him up and told him like, hey, are you not going to do anything? Like, are you not worried? He extended his arm, he calms the waters, and then he reminds them of the importance of having faith. So what's the moral behind the story? Having God in our boat doesn't mean that storms won't rock us. It just means that they won't sink us. He uses them always. So remember, the decisions that we make today determine the stories that we tell tomorrow. And therefore, our lives today are just a sum of all of the decisions that we have made up until now. Let's choose wisely then. If you stay up until here, I really want to thank you for that. And if you like this video, if you like the content, please, you would really help me by subscribing, by liking this video, and by commenting whatever you would like. That way I would really know that you took something out of this. Do not hesitate on sharing this video if you believe that it can help somebody else. As I always say, stay tuned. Bye-bye.